Sometimes the truth you've been ignoring for 5 years is hiding exactly where you never thought to look. Behind the U-bend of a pipe. Wrapped in an old grey cloth. Waiting for your hand to finally reach in. This is Sarah. We're calling her Sarah, not her real name, not her real city. A 42-year-old art teacher, part-time, in a quiet suburb just outside Manchester. Married 18 years. 2 children. A 4-bedroom Edwardian house with a front garden her husband liked to call ours, even though he had never once weeded it. By every external measure, Sarah had the life women in magazines write about when they're asked to describe their best years. What she was about to discover, on an ordinary Saturday morning in early November, would end her marriage in exactly 61 days.
I remember every single second of that morning. The weight of the cloth. The cold of the tile. The sound of the drip in the pipe that I had been meaning to ask David to fix for 3 weeks.
This is her story. Every detail confirmed. Every name changed. Every pattern documented. Because it turns out, and this is the part the headlines never quite tell you, the thing she found under that sink wasn't the betrayal.
The betrayal was already there. I just hadn't seen it yet.
A 2024 survey by YouGov UK, published last spring in partnership with the Office for National Statistics, asked a simple question. In relationships lasting more than 10 years, how many partners maintain a hidden channel of communication? A secondary phone. A secondary email. A secondary life. The answer was larger than the researchers expected. 23% of men in long-term relationships said yes. 12% of women. Applied to the adult British population, that works out to several million parallel conversations happening right now, behind laundry doors, in home office drawers, and yes, occasionally taped behind the U-bend of a downstairs bathroom pipe. Psychology Today calls this phenomenon hidden digital lives, a term first coined by Dr. Lisa Firestone in late 2023, describing the modern architecture of an affair. Not a single indiscretion. Not a mistake made at a conference. But a sustained, curated second reality that the other partner is never meant to see. Sarah's husband had one for 5 years. She found it in the second hour of a Saturday she had otherwise planned to spend cleaning. This is what happened in the 61 days that followed. Sarah and David met in 2005, at a colleague's leaving drinks in a pub off Deansgate. She had just finished her degree at Manchester Met, Fine Art, specialism in portraiture, a painter who didn't quite have the courage to call herself a painter. She was 24. David was 26. A rising account manager at a software firm. Charming, funny, the kind of man who ordered 2 drinks at once because he didn't like waiting.
I thought he was the most confident person I had ever met. That's what I called it in my head. Confidence. In hindsight, I might have chosen a different word.
They got married 2 years later, at his parents' parish church near Macclesfield. Small wedding. 60 guests. Sarah wore a tea-length dress she made herself from a pattern her mother had used in 1981. Noah arrived in 2009. Emma in 2012. In 2015, they moved to the tree-lined suburb where Sarah still lives today, 4 bedrooms, grey stone, front garden, back garden with an old apple tree that drops too many apples every September. Sarah taught art part-time at a local secondary school. Painted in the evenings when the children were asleep. Framed a few of her own pieces and hung them in the hall. David's career climbed. By 2020, he was a regional sales director. By 2021, when the pandemic forced his firm into a permanent hybrid model, he was working from home 4 days a week. Sometimes 5.
Home office became a long sentence. I didn't realize how long at the time.
He took his laptop to the spare room upstairs. Set up a second monitor. Put a small sign on the door that said "Do Not Disturb." Taped a stock photograph of a beach sunset next to it, because Noah had asked why the sign looked so cross. Most days, between conference calls, David disappeared downstairs. For the bathroom. The downstairs bathroom. 40 minutes. Sometimes an hour. He told Sarah he had a sensitive stomach. Always had. A doctor in his 20s had muttered something about irritable bowel, and David had built an entire mythology around it: the special fiber supplements, the expensive probiotics, the long Saturday mornings spent quietly behind a locked door. Sarah believed him. Why wouldn't she? You don't wake up one morning and think, my husband is pretending to have digestive problems in order to maintain a secret sexual life with multiple women on a smartphone he keeps hidden behind the bathroom pipe. That's not a thought that visits most marriages. Until it does. Sarah noticed things. She was, after all, a woman trained to see. Portraiture teaches you to read a face, the small tensions around the mouth, the reflex of the eyes when a lie lands. She had spent 20 years noticing things. The problem is that noticing is not the same as believing.
I noticed that he started sleeping with his phone face down on the bedside table. Not just at night. Always. Dinner. Breakfast. In the car. On holiday. He never left that screen where I could see it. I noticed that his Apple Watch lit up at 2 in the morning and he would roll silently toward the wall and read it in the dark, thumb moving. I noticed he would then put the watch on his chest, face down, and pretend to be asleep. I noticed that when I asked who was messaging him at 2 in the morning, he laughed and said, "Work. You know what Clive is like. He sends me 20 things overnight and expects replies by 6. Clive did not exist. Well, Clive existed. But Clive did not send David messages at 2 in the morning.
There were other things. He bought cologne he hadn't worn since their honeymoon. He got a gym membership he never used to go to. He started cutting his hair every 4 weeks instead of every 8. He replaced his glasses with contact lenses after 15 years of wearing glasses. Each change, individually, had an explanation. Men reach 40. They reassess. They refresh. The problem is that Sarah is not a woman who buys explanations. She is a woman who collects them. Stores them. Waits.
I said nothing. For more than a year, I said nothing. Because the alternative, that something was genuinely wrong, was simply too big. Too recent. Too inconvenient. I was 41. I had a job, 2 teenagers, a freelance commission for a portrait I had not yet started. Whole weeks passed when I barely saw my own reflection. I was still in love with him. That's the part no one writes in the headlines about women like me. The headlines make us sound like detectives. The truth is I was just a tired wife with very good eyes who was desperately hoping I was wrong.
Saturday, early November. Clear sky. Cold morning. David in London for a 2-day client visit. Sarah began the day with a coffee, a scrubbing brush, and a bottle of bleach spray. She had a habit of cleaning when she was anxious. Which should tell you everything about how she had been feeling for weeks. The downstairs bathroom was the last room on her list.